Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the National Bar Association and friends. It gives me a great deal of pleasure tonight to bring to you our town hall meeting sponsored by Region 3. We have incredible talent, and I would just call them superstars, who are going to speak to us today. We are in the final stretches of this election. So I first want to thank you all for attending. I want to thank Region 3 for hosting and pulling together this magnificent program. I want to thank our President-elect Carlos Moore and our extraordinarily talented Judge Alicia Hughes as well for all of the hard work that she has done. Akua Kapak as well. And I have to recognize in the region some superstars who have just helped to pull this together. Starting with the president of the Delaware Bar Association, Rhonda Hill Wilson, the president of the Barristers Association, Rhonda Hill, the president of the Garden State Bar Association and chair of ADR for the National Bar Association, Dean Burrell. I want to also recognize the Honorable Steve Hockety, who's chairman and former Region 3 director and GSBA past president. I think I mentioned the president of the Barristers Bar Association of Philadelphia, the Delaware Barristers Association, Brianna Denby, the Delaware Barristers Association secretary, Nicole Mosey, and James Wilson, who is the Garden State Bar Association, and Nelia Ford, who is the leader of everything, Fearless NBA Region 3 Director. I thank all of you. As I said, we have superstars here today who are going to impart their wisdom to us. But I just want to say this. We are in the final stretches. This is like the last week of exams. Freshman year, last exam, we're in the final stretch. That's where we are. November 3rd is around the corner. We know that election suppression and voter suppression have been at an all-time high. It's just been incredible. Every single day, I receive texts, emails that we escalate up and sometimes result in litigation. Some of the finest and strongest and toughest litigation has been out of Philadelphia, has been in Pennsylvania, battleground state. I'm sitting here in Georgia, battleground state, Michigan, battleground state, Florida. I want to say all things crazy come out of Florida because we have ballots in the middle of the highways in Florida, battleground state. So our job as those who protect the right to vote in our communities is our jobs are more important now than ever. So I just want to thank the National Bar Association, all of our membership, all of the affiliate chapters for the fine work we're doing in the field. But since we are in Region 3 and we've been so graciously hosted by Region 3, I'd like to play, I just like to show a picture of, this is an actual picture of what happened in Philadelphia. So this was, this is a trash receptacle. You have seen this. This is on the corner of 15th and Sanson Street. For those of you who are in Philly, for those of you who are in Pennsylvania, you probably saw this. This is an actual gentleman posting this ballot information. You see how well tailored this is to the box so that people who voted in here would go and cast their ballots. This is what would happen. And of course, this is a trash receptacle. So their ballots wouldn't count, their vote wouldn't count. This is election suppression at its worst. And we're seeing throughout the country these types of tactics. And the explanation was, oh no, this was some artistry that was misplaced. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not misplaced artistry. This is election suppression, voter suppression. But the good news is we know that the people in Region 3, and I have just a short video from Philadelphia, are determined not to be deterred. They will wait in long lines like everywhere else in the country, but they said we are not going to be denied our right to vote. Kyle?
Okay. All right.
We can turn that off. And ladies and gentlemen, you all may think that's an unusual, extraordinary video to play at an election protection session. But the reason why I play that is because whatever it takes, our people are hurting. People at the polls feel threatened. They are horrified. They're terrified. They sense danger. And so if people had we called it a box and played music and did the slide, that's a small price to pay. That's a small price to pay for exercising the right to vote, because we all recognize what's at stake. So I just wanted to play that because it brought a smile to my face in an otherwise very, very serious and dangerous times that we're living in. So again, I want to thank you. And I just thought we would just see both ends of the spectrum. Election suppression, where they're using trash receptacles so that people in certain communities would drop in their ballots, and so their votes wouldn't count. But at the other end, you see an organized effort to dance and party and to just say, we're going to vote no matter what, even if we're in long lines for hours. So thank you so much. We got to keep on fighting till the bitter end. This is in the final stretch. And against that backdrop, I know I haven't recognized everyone, but we have a tremendous program, and we know Madam Chaplain is going to grace us and bless us with a word today.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with Region 3. Thank you, Madam President. Let us pray. Oh, most gracious and wonderful Father, we come to you on this day, first of all, giving you thanks. Thank you for waking us up this morning and starting us on our way. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to serve as attorneys and to serve you, to serve the people to whom we have been called to be in service to. We come knowing that in this time, we need to work even harder one with another and work to preserve not only the vote, but the integrity of those who would vote and the integrity of those who would put themselves forward for service. We pray that everything that will come out of this time together will be edification for all of us, and not that we will just gain knowledge, but we will take that knowledge and apply it so that we can use it for the good, not just for ourselves, not just for those whom we serve, but the good of the community and for the good of all of your people. Bless all of those who are here today. Give them the strength, give them the wisdom that they need to lead this forum this evening. And I ask a special prayer upon the life of our president as she walks in the way that you have called her, as she goes about serving with integrity, serving with dignity, serving with grace. Let us be mindful that it is not an easy road that she travels, but she does it for the greater good of all of those to whom she has been called today. I thank you for this opportunity for all of us to come together. And it is in your name that we offer this prayer. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Madam Chaplain. Well, I'm going to take a step aside, but I do want to recognize the Secretary of State of New Jersey. We are so delighted and honored that you're here, the Honorable Tahisha Way. And I want to thank you again. I know you have to leave early, so I just want to recognize you and thank you for all that you do and for being there and representing us so well. All right.
Thank you, President Hoffler. And again, thank you all for joining us this afternoon or this evening. I am Melisha Ford, the current National Bar Association Region 3 Director. And for those of you who may not know, Region 3 is comprised of New Jersey, Delaware, and Pennsylvania. So again, I want to thank everybody for coming out. And if you have any questions following tonight's program or want to follow up about Region 3 or our election protection activities, I will be leaving my contact information in the chat. But without further ado, I'd like to get into our panels because I do know our secretary does have to get off into another call. So Mr. Hockaday, our chairperson, you're up.
Thank you. How are you? Thank you so much, Melisha. You've done a wonderful job so far as Region 3 Director, and we thank you for your service. Thank you also, President C.K. Hoffer. We are following your lead. You have led the charge, and we are doing all we can to see that your vision is fulfilled, to do what we can to have free and fair elections. Also, certainly my co-host tonight, Alicia Hughes, is also on as well. I'd like to also thank her as well. And also our president-elect of the National Bar Association, Carlos Moore, for also recruiting me to help in this fight of our lives, this fight to save democracy is what we're doing. So thank you. So I'd like to introduce our panelists from New Jersey, Secretary of State Tahisha Way. She was sworn in with, right after our Governor Phil Morphy was sworn into office. And she's done an outstanding job and has been charged with protecting and preserving the integrity of elections in New Jersey. But we need to get information out to the people. And who better but the Secretary of State to distribute and disseminate information to individuals in our state, but the Secretary Tahisha Way. So I'll pass it to you, Secretary. Thank you so much for your time. We are honored to have you, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, thank you, Steve, for all you do in the great state of New Jersey. I first want to thank President Hoffler for her leadership, and of course, Director Ford, NBA Region 3. Thank you for this insightful program which you're hosting, because as Secretary of State, one of my honored roles is the chief election official in the state, and I see elections as a two-sided coin. We're talking about protection and we're talking about access, especially in this COVID-19 environment. We want to move democracy forward, but at the same time, we want to keep our people safe. So I have a short slide presentation. We hear about voter suppression oftentimes. And the thing about voter suppression is we want to make sure that our voters are not just folk who vote, but they are educated and informed. And believe me, there's a great deal of misinformation and disinformation that is out there. So we all have to double down and make sure that we're not on the sidelines this election, that we're also participants in the game. So if we could get to the New Jersey PowerPoint, I greatly appreciate it. Okay.
We're coming up in just a couple of slides. Kyle, if you would continue to advance them, please. We're almost there, Secretary Way. Okay, one more, Kyle, I think, and you might be there. There she is. Let's advance to her next slide, and we have your presentation, Secretary. Here you are.
Hey, okay. So what we did with our education campaign in New Jersey is start the New Jersey Votes campaign. Safe, simple, and secure. I will go through our goals and objections. Next slide. Okay, this upcoming November election, what we did in New Jersey was all active registered voters automatically received vote by mail ballots in the mail. Our online registration, we just launched that September 4th, and we would advise all of our voters not just to vote, but first and foremost, to check your voter status. Now, you may feel as though, yes, I am registered, but what is important is to confirm that you have all of your contact information, your address is correct. So our website is vote.nj.gov. At the same time, where there was the vote by mail ballots being sent, we also have polling locations available for voters. There are about 50% coverage of locations per county. So if a voter decided that they wanted to vote in person, what they would do is go to their designated polling location and vote by way of paper ballot. However, for those who require accommodations as a result of a disability which would preclude them from voting on a paper ballot, they will have voting devices to cast their votes. Next slide. Now, there are 4 simple words that we are advising voters of in terms of completing the vote by mail ballot. Vote, sign, seal, return. So you vote, fill in the oval, complete the ballot, and of course, do not detach, as you see on the screen, the certificate of mail-in voter. You sign it, fill it in, you seal it by placing the ballot in the certificate envelope, then you place that envelope into the prepaid mailing envelope, and then finally return. Next slide. Now in New Jersey, we have 4 options to return your completed mail-in ballot. If you decide to return it by mail, it has to be, because New Jersey is a postmarked state, it has to be postmarked on or before 8 p.m. by November 3rd and received by your local county board of elections on or before November 10th for it to be counted. Now, at this present time, option 2 would seem a better choice as a result of the election is a week out. You still can mail it, but one shouldn't delay. So we do have the options of the secure ballot drop boxes. There's about an estimated, I want to say 300 drop boxes throughout the entire state of New Jersey. And again, if you decide to return your ballot by Dropbox, you must do this by 8 p.m. on November 3rd. Third option, you can deliver your ballot in person, of course, practicing safety guidelines to your local county board of elections office. Must do this by 8 p.m. on November the 3rd. And then finally, you can actually bring your ballot, your completed ballot, to your designated polling place, again, by 8 p.m. on Election Day, November the 3rd. And we're advising voters, we're putting them on notice that if they decide to bring their completed ballot to their designated polling location, they can be the only individual to transport that completed VBM. Next slide, please. Now, another vote of confidence, as I call it, for folk who have voted the vote by mail ballots is the Track My Ballot tool that we have at vote.nj.gov. You can go there, you can create your account. You need to have one of the following in your possession: the driver's license number, use the 4 digits of your Social Security, or your voter ID number. And if you want to locate that, you could go to Am I Registered page to find out your voter ID number. If you haven't received your ballot, we're advising voters to contact their county clerks. Now, this Track My Ballot tool will let you know when your ballot was sent out to you. It will also advise you of when it was received and processed by the County Board of Elections. Next slide. The bearers. In New Jersey, our law allows a person to transport a cast or completed vote by mail for you. Bearers are limited to 3 ballots per election. The bearer must sign the bearer portion of the outer envelope of the ballot in the presence of the voter. And they can deliver ballots to the Board of Elections, and they can drop them at the ballot drop box. However, as I stated moments ago, a bearer cannot bring or transport a completed vote by mail to a polling place. It is only the voter who can do that. Next slide. Cure letters. I know that members have heard about the rates of rejections in terms of the vote by mails. And besides vote by mails getting rejected. The highest percentage of rejections nationally is a result of the ballot coming in beyond the state's deadline. However, signature mismatches, or a voter may not even or may have inadvertently forgotten to sign their ballot. Those are other high percentages of why vote by mails are rejected. So in New Jersey, what we do is we have the boards of elections, if that is the case with a mismatched signature or a missing signature, you, the voter, would receive a letter, a call, or email saying there is this signature issue. And we're giving voters until November the 18th to cure that. So we have been saying to voters, please make certain if you do receive a letter, call, or an email stating that for your ballot to count, you have to cure it, that they actually remain engaged. And if they have any questions about this, that they should definitely contact their local county board of elections, or they can even contact my state office so that there can be certainty and insurance that their votes are counted and no one is inadvertently disenfranchised. Next slide. Again, signature verification. It's oftentimes asked, when does the Board of Elections start verifying the ballot signatures? And the law has it that the board shall meet at least 4 days per week, starting October the 13th, which is passed, to begin verifying the signatures on the vote by mail ballots. So this is the time in which voters should be aware, if they do receive any form of notice, that they need to cure that signature defect. Next slide. Frequently asked questions. We have a whole bunch of FAQs at votein.nj.gov. One of the questions is, can I vote in person on election day? Because a good amount of marketing, if you will, or education is about the vote by mail process in New Jersey. And again, the answer is yes, but it is only by way of provisional paper ballot. Voting devices are only for those who require reasonable accommodations. Now, what should I do if I make a mistake, damage, or lose my vote by mail ballot? This is one of the major questions that my office oftentimes get asked, and so does the local county clerk's offices. Call the local county clerk. That's what we advise, to request a replacement ballot, or depending on the timing or the circumstances, they may actually advise a voter to go directly in person to their to vote. Now, how can I become a poll worker on election day? I have to say, and I must applaud the New Jersey voters and residents, because they have truly risen to the call of the national need for more poll workers. The applications are still at our website, and I am happy to report that we actually in New Jersey had about 37,000 individuals sign up to be poll workers. And I was also happy to see that we actually partnered with New Jersey's Bar Association. And what we did was they have actively recruited young, able-bodied attorneys and even law students to come aboard as poll workers. Next slide. November election key dates. October 23rd is already passed, but this is where our inactive voters can make an application for a ballot so that the ballot can actually come to them by way of mail. November 3rd, again, that's D-Day, Election Day. If you're mailing your ballots back, postmarked by November 3rd, to be in receipt by the Board of Elections November the 10th. November 18th, as I had mentioned before, that is the deadline for voters to cure any signature defects. November 23rd is the date in which the counties must submit their official results to the Secretary of State's office, my office. I have to certify by December the 8th, and then December the 14th, of course, by law, Electoral College meets. Next slide. Just some key numbers. In New Jersey, the total number of voters registered is 6,427,235. We issued 6,051,000, remember it's to the active voters, and 100. And thus far, there's been 2.5 estimated voters who have already returned their ballots. So we're in good pace here. Next slide. Important links, our website, vote.nj.gov, where you could check again your voter registration status, the secure ballot drop box locations. I know, Madam President, you had showed the video of, non-official, if you will, drop box. So we want to, of course, make certain that our voters know the official drop boxes. I know I voted, and that's the way I voted. The polling locations, making certain that everyone is aware where their designated polling location is, because they're not the same in certain circumstances. And again, for voter confidence, the track My Ballot. In addition to the online link, we have our hotline, 1-877-NJ-VOTER. Next slide. And I again, as you see, the basketball player shooting the winning shot of the vote. I think that it's important. Yes. And Madam President, you are so right. This is definitely, like every single election, school board elections, municipal elections, any type of election, it's very important for all of us to be in the game and not on the sidelines. What's so very important is, yes, there's the presidential election, but this year is also the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, when women were guaranteed the right to vote. I know it was on paper because it would take decades for other women, such as ourselves, Latinx women, for Native American women, Asian American women to vote, but it's still of significance and importance. And at the same time, this is the year of the 2020 census, another time in which we should be, or should have been, since it's closed now, for us to have raised our voices in that vein. So thank you for having me. I don't know if there's any questions before I have to unfortunately go to another elections.
Thank you so much, Secretary Way. I just have a couple questions, if I can ask. It's just things that I've been hearing around the election concerning a couple things that you mentioned. One is this disability component of being able to actually use the voting machines. So how would a person know? Is there a certain credential that somebody would have to present to show the poll worker that they are in fact disabled? How is that determination made?
Oh, that's an excellent question, Steve. Thanks for asking. They attest to that at the polling location. Okay, so and this is for individuals who require assistance because they cannot complete a paper ballot. Okay, that is the, if you will, the reasonable accommodation, and we're making that known too.
Okay, thank you. And then the last thing is, you know, one thing that's different between the states and New Jersey is our provisional ballot, since we are largely vote by mail election. So many people just don't have confidence in the word provisional ballot because in some people's minds, it sounds like it doesn't count as much as a regular ballot. So just describe the provisional ballot and what it means and whether or not people should have confidence in casting a provisional ballot should they need it.
Yes, and that's another question that we're hearing. And it's important to note that a provisional ballot does count. They're counted after the vote by mail ballots are counted. And they will make certain of verification that, let's say a person may have voted by vote by mail, okay? And so it's a verification to make sure that there's not another vote out there by that individual. But the important thing to note is that the provisional ballots count. Okay, I hope I made that clear.
Thank you. Yes, you did. You did very much. We
Okay.
certainly appreciate your time.
Okay.
We found it a win for us when you were able to participate in this event. So we're so honored to have you and so respectful of your time. We know you have so much to do before this most important election. So thank you again, Secretary Way.
I'd like to ask one question of the Secretary, which is, when we're engaged in election protection on November 3rd, and you have a state law that says no one could be obstructed when they're attempting a vote, what can I do as a poll watcher if I'm outside and I see someone intimidating voters?
I'm sorry, you're breaking up on my end. Can you just repeat the question? I'm so sorry.
Under New Jersey law, if I'm a poll watcher outside and I see someone interfering with a voter, what can I do as a poll monitor, election protection monitor under New Jersey law?
Oh, okay. Thank you for that question. You, just like with every single election, nothing has changed about this. You can call our hotline, okay? Or you can call your local elections office, okay, by law.
Okay, do you know the hotline number?
You could call our 1-877, I mentioned NJ Voter.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just so everyone knows, and this is even pre-pandemic, my office, and I shout out my team, has done a phenomenal job in terms of coordination with our local law enforcement, the Attorney General's office. We're talking about New Jersey's Homeland and Preparedness Department. We're talking about on the federal level, the FBI, the U.S. Attorney General's office, Homeland Security, their subdivision CISA. So everyone, should have confidence that, again, this is a team sport and all hands are required on deck. But thank you for your question.
I have a question as well, if I could, and a comment to make. Madam Secretary, first of all, my goodness, in this country, we need you replicated in all 50 states. I'm sitting here in Georgia with a Secretary of State who is not handling the elections as responsibly and as thoroughly as you. So thank you for all that you do. Your explanations of what to do, how to vote, were incredibly insightful. So we thank you. I have a sort of question comment picking up on what Dean mentioned, religious groups. Because in Georgia, for instance, and in Alabama, in North Carolina, in some of the southern states, we're seeing heightened levels of voter intimidation, sometimes propagated by law enforcement. And so as a counter, the National Bar has entered into an agreement with the Advancement Project to negotiate MOUs, Memorandum of Understanding, with law enforcement throughout the country, especially where we see it's really, really bad, so that they could play a constructive role and not a destructive, intimidating role. So my question to you is, in New Jersey, do you all encourage, as we are doing, we see in the South, religious groups to be, and we call them peacemakers, if you will, to be at the polls, not right there where people are voting, but close by, just to give people a level of comfort that we have overcome so much. We're here together. The religious community is working hand in hand with the nonpartisan election protection effort, and that we're in this together, because we have seen that that lowers or minimizes the stress level in some of our communities. In New Jersey, has there been consideration of that? Have you seen that? Is that something that you would encourage, or are there certain rules that the religious organizations have to abide by?
Well, that's an excellent question. And I think that what we have tried to do in New Jersey is be proactive instead of reactive, okay? So the first step is in terms of education. That is why myself, I know my Deputy Chief of Staff, Director of Divisions of Elections, we meet and appear in town halls such as this. On various constituencies. I know I presented about the change of elections, what the Jewish population, I know I presented with organizations on that front, what they should look for. I know, you know, there's been talks with the Latinx organizations, our advocacy groups. I was just on a Zoom webinar with the Asian Pacific, an Islander organization, because that's what you have to do. So they are familiar with what exactly is misinformation, what exactly is something that could be seen as voter suppression or intimidation, making sure that on all fronts, everyone is educated. Now, that's also why on a separate front, as I mentioned moments ago, we're partnering with our local state departments, the state police. State police helps us out because they monitor social media, okay, and keeps everything on alert if there are certain suspicious or untoward statements out there, if you will. So that's how we've been handling it. And in New Jersey, we see it again as a team sport, but at the same time, we have to make sure our voters, I've been saying this one all of the time. My staff knows this. We can't just say to folk, vote November 3rd, before November 3rd. We have to actually educate them on all fronts. And before I hop off, I know I said this at the beginning of my piece, but please have folk on the lookout for the misinformation and the disinformation. Okay, we don't want them being told, oh, you go to this designated polling location, oh, the election's on November 4th, oh, you have until November 6th to put your ballot in the mailbox or something like that. We really have to dive deep in this one, my friends. So that's basically it. This is a team sport. And again, I thank you, NBA Region 3, Madam President, Director, all of you for, you know, having me aboard this evening. I apologize, I have to run.
No, thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you, Secretary Way. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
So we're next going to turn to Philadelphia. We know Pennsylvania is one of the big battleground states. There's going to be a lot of activity in Pennsylvania, and there'll be a dogfight in terms of how things shape up. But you know, as the National Bar Association, we're a 501c3. We're not advocating for any specific candidate. All right. However, it is in our vested interest to make sure that there are free and fair elections. All right. So we have a representative from Philadelphia, the Commissioner of Elections, Mr. Omar Sabir. If you could show yourself, we appreciate your time as well, sir. And if you can give us any information that we need to have, perhaps even expound a little bit on, you know, those acts that we saw that President Hoffler highlighted. We did see in the chat that you had some response to that, but we'd like to hear more from you. So we welcome you and we look forward to hearing from you. Commissioner?
Yes, how's everybody doing? I'd like to thank you guys for having me and all the work that you are doing. And I'll be very brief because I have a 7 o'clock I had to be at. But that issue with the ballot box, that was a membership club in Philadelphia, and they have a voting exhibit at their membership club, and someone put the sticker on the trash can, but we had a swift and rapid response. We have a partnership with the Pennsylvania District Attorney's Office, with the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office, the Attorney General, Streets Department, Philadelphia, and the Mayor's Office. Those stickers were down within a matter of a couple minutes. There were no ballots in the trash can, and that organization apologized for putting that ballot box there. By the time it got to social media, it was already down. So again, it was definitely, there would have been confusion, but it was crisis averted. And as well, Philadelphia has 17 satellite locations open, and they started opening up September 29th. So we have maybe seen close to 100,000 voters use those early voting satellite centers. And in those centers, they basically request a vote by mail ballot. They complete the ballot there in person. If they have any questions, people have any questions, they also use these satellite questions to get their answer questions. You know, people are afraid to put their ballots in the mail, so they also serve as drop-off locations. And we have a crucial deadline coming up. Tomorrow at 5 p.m. is the deadline for people to apply for those vote by mail ballots. So again, we're trying to build a lot of enthusiasm around that, letting everyone know how important it is, and we'll have extended hours at our satellite locations. And my website is
we're having a little difficult.
I'm sorry. Yeah, PhiladelphiaVotes.com. I put the website in the chat, and that has all the information. You can find out where your polling locations are. We have a locator on there. It has all the information in regards to inmates, people that have criminal backgrounds. I mean, just all the information at PhiladelphiaVotes.com. You can check your voter registration on there. You check where your polling locations are, and it has the latest information. We use that as well, and so we just mailed out 1.1 million postcards informing everyone where their polling locations are. So they received at a paper location as well, and then we're going to have 718 polling locations open. That's 85% of the locations that will be open, so people can use the machines. You know, it's like an 85% chance that they're going to vote in their normal place. So everyone has been notified. They also can download the locations as well. So we've been working with clergy and other different organizations as well, you know, for a large election protection organization operation as well. So if anyone wants to be a part of that, please, you can send me an email at omar.sabir@phila.gov, omar.sabir@phila.gov, and we have the Committee of 70, we have the ACLU, we have clergy, we have a whole group that we're going to have an unprecedented election protection operation in Philadelphia as well. So unfortunately, I have to go right now. But again, my email address is omar.sabir@phila.gov. If you have any questions or any concerns, please let me know.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Sure.
Commissioner, again, thank you. We appreciate your time as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, we will now round out our region participation. We also have the Delaware State Commission Mr. Anthony Albets in attendance to let us know a little bit about what we need to know in Delaware. Commissioner?
Great.
Kyle, load his slide deck, please.
Thank you. And thank you very much for having me. I'm coming to you live from one of our operations rooms. They're not a very glamorous background, but you see equipment behind us. That's our vote by mail, some of our vote by mail equipment here in the state of Delaware. So I have my one office right here in the room here, so right where the action happens. So pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. Just a real quick background. In the state of Delaware, unlike other jurisdictions, elections is handled on a statewide level. We have a single statewide Department of Elections, and so everything's very unified, and that's kind of a benefit of our small size in Delaware. And we are able to coordinate everything from a statewide level, which leads to uniformity in procedures and policies and materials and equipment, which is very, very helpful. So again, I really appreciate being here tonight. It was my pleasure to speak to the Delaware group last week, and glad to be with my regional partners, and honored to be with Philadelphia Commissioner and with the New Jersey Secretary of State, a great company here. So thank you very much. We can go ahead on the slides. Okay, I'd like to bring everyone's attention, if you're a Delaware voter, you may be familiar with iVote. That's our voter portal. We're very happy with iVote. It's a one-stop shop for voting information and elections information. You can do any of these items on there listed. Very recently, of course, one of the key items that has been undertaken on iVote is to request an absentee or vote by mail ballot, and then subsequently to check your ballot status. And it's a very user-friendly tool. We encourage everyone, especially now, if you need to make an address update, for example, on your record, please do so before Election Day. Use iVote, that's the most convenient option, and that'll minimize your inconvenience on Election Day if you are voting in person at a polling place. Okay, we can move on. Okay, Delaware has been a leader in working with our DMV, our Division of Motor Vehicles. We've been fully integrated for 12 years with our Division of Motor Vehicles here in Delaware. So anyone who obtains motor vehicle services, such as driver's license services in the state of Delaware, will be provided that opportunity for voter registration or to update one's registration. It's a real-time system. We've been online with a real-time connection since 2009. So basically, once you complete your transaction, we see it in real time at our elections offices. And ideally, in non-peak periods, peak periods now could take a little bit longer, but non-peak periods, you usually get those processed within a day or two, and you see your updated polling place card or your new polling place card come right out to you. We're very happy about that. Delaware does afford us, you see on the screen here, for 16-year-olds to register DMV when they're first obtaining their license, and they automatically become active when they will be 18 by the next general election. We've had that in place now for almost 10 years, actually. We're very happy with that. We also provide voter registration services at our Division of Health and Social Services and our Department of Labor here in the state of Delaware, and they utilize the iVote portal as well. And then we have our other options available. We have our elections offices as well. You can always stop by or check our website, elections.delaware.gov, which has a whole host of information, including if you'd like to download an application form on paper and do it that way. We'll accommodate whatever you'd like to do, however you'd like to access our services. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, of course, obviously, next week is a general election. Our polling places in Delaware are open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. All polling places will be open in the state of Delaware, all of our traditional polling places. We have, in the state of Delaware, we have 400, just over 400 election districts, as we call them. Most places call them precincts. We call them election districts. We have about, in the state, we have close to 300 distinct locations, polling places throughout the state of Delaware. All voters registered by October 10th may participate in this election, and no party affiliations, of course, are at play here. Anyone of any party affiliation or no party affiliation are eligible to vote as long as you're registered by that date. Also, call your attention to on elections.delaware.gov. Our elections calendar has a lot of great information about elections deadlines for the year. Okay, next slide, please. Vote by mail. Vote by mail is a new option, an additional option for our voters here in Delaware. We've always had absentee voting for specified reasons. Vote by mail was made legal by our General Assembly for the 2020 election season, for our primary and general elections. This is only in place for us at this point for the 2020 election season. Our General Assembly would need to enact legislation to make this permanent for us. So as I mentioned, it was active for our primary and our general, and Delaware has the latest state primary in the nation. So we just had our state primary September 15th. So we actually had to turn around almost immediately and get ready for our general election. We literally had to have ballots out to our military and overseas voters 2 days after we certified the primary election results. So it's been a tremendously busy time for us, but our team has done a really great job. Mentioned vote by mail and absentee voting, that always is in existence and still is in play for Delaware voters. Those who cannot appear at their polling place on election day may still take advantage of that. So we like to say in Delaware this year we've expanded the options for voters. We have our in-person voting, we have absentee voting, and now we have vote by mail as well. So we're really excited to offer all these opportunities to our voters. Okay, we can go ahead. Okay, Delaware, by Delaware law, we actually will provide absentee and vote by mail ballots up to 4 days prior to the election. So this Friday, in fact, is the last day we mail out. We do advise that the best practice is to request your absentee or vote by mail ballot, if you haven't done so already, by a week before the election. So by tomorrow, that would be, just to ensure that you are able to receive that on time. We do have in-person absentee voting at our elections offices, our county offices, until 12 noon the day before the election. We are asking at our offices if you can contact the office to schedule a time to come in, and the only reason we're doing that is to maintain social distancing protocols at our offices and our safety procedures for all our voters and for our staff. But we'll certainly try to accommodate anyone who wishes to vote in-person absentee. Delaware, I would like to make sure I emphasize this. Delaware is a ballot in hand state, meaning we must have that absentee or vote by mail ballot back to that county elections office that issued it by close of polls on election day, so 8 p.m. Postmarks don't come into play in Delaware. It is by ballot in hand. So please make sure you get that ballot back to us by that time. Okay. Absentee voting, as I mentioned, that's been available for many, many years. We do have special provisions in our law for absentee voting, especially for military and overseas voters. They have an extended registration deadline, although that has now in fact passed. And we do have options for electronic delivery and return for those individuals who may have a challenge receiving mail, especially, for example, your military folks deployed overseas in a spot that may not have regular mail service. Okay, we can go ahead. Absentee voting in Delaware does have an option for single elections, all elections in a year, or permanent absentee for specified reasons, meaning that you will get a permanent, as a permanent absentee voter, you will receive an absentee ballot for all elections in which you're eligible without the need to request a ballot again. As I mentioned, that's for absentee, because absentee is unchanged, even with vote by mail. The provisions for absentee voting have not changed and continue moving forward as they always have. Okay, move forward. We also have, in addition to some options to allow voters to access their ballots, those who are absentee, those who are sick or maybe disabled, we have some accessibility tools which we are happy about. We also have, and I'll mention this in a couple slides later down, our new voting equipment. We have new voting equipment in Delaware in 2020. We initially thought that would be the biggest news item for the 2020 election cycle, and then of course COVID-19 hit. So we have, that's one of several new items we have available. But I'll mention that shortly about some of the accessibility tools, including the Universal Voting Console that we have available, as well as our traditional options for assistance. We're very proud in Delaware that voters who may need accessibility accommodations will utilize the same voting machine that all voters do. So there's no distinction between the voting machines that we use. They are available to all voters of different levels of ability. And we encourage and also instruct our poll workers that anyone is eligible to use the accessibility devices and the accessibility features of our machines. And we in fact encourage that because we like folks to be familiar with how the equipment can perform and how they can be of service to voters of various backgrounds and various abilities. Okay, we move forward. Okay, so I mentioned a little bit about our new equipment in Delaware. We have new voting machines with a voter verified paper audit trail. We're very excited about that. We did not have that previously. We also have poll books for check-in, and these and the voting machines also give us a lot greater flexibility in the polling place for managing the flow of individuals. These are much more flexible devices that can accommodate different, for example, ballot styles on the voting machines. Voters are not locked into a specific line or a specific check-in line. So it's been very, very helpful for us in making our polling places more efficient, as well as the greater accessibility features that we offer. We've also done quite a bit to enhance our election night reporting website, and that website has a ton of features. It has a much better visual interface this year, and even has access where voters and the public viewing the site can download reports of results right onto their right at their computer. If they wish to see printouts, they can do that right from our website. So we're very excited about that. Big step forward. Okay, we can go forward. Have a couple graphics I want to show you. This is an informational card. You'll see this at our polling places, which kind of gives a walkthrough of how the machine works. As I mentioned, we have a paper ballot backup this year. The voters still will interact with a large screen. And our voting machines, in fact, for those watching tonight, they're the same machines that Philadelphia uses. We have the exact same voting machines. And we've worked a lot with the city of Philadelphia. They've been down here to visit us on our elections. We've been up there to visit them on their elections. Because we have that similar equipment. They don't use the poll books like we do, but they have the same machines. So it's a great system, and it's very easy to use. Our voters in using it for the past year and a half have been very happy with it, and they're really excited about the paper ballot backup, which gives us the opportunity for audits, manual audits post-election, which I'm proud to report have had 100% accuracy, of course, and complete agreement with election night results reported based on that follow-up audit. And our audits are done by hand recounts of the paper ballots, reading the human readable text on the ballot. So it's an absolute granular level of audits. We're very excited about that. And these machines provide a full chain of custody for all the components. And we're very, very diligent about that because we want everyone to have full confidence in our voting equipment. Okay, we can move forward. I also provide this Express Vote XL kind of graphic. I'd like to alert everyone that even though on their ballots they may see a code, a barcode on their ballot, what that is they use, and again, very similar machines in Philadelphia, same devices. The barcodes are provided for if there ever were a need for a very large scale recount. We have the opportunity to scan those ballots just like we do our absentee and vote by mail. But like I mentioned, just draw attention to the fact that on our traditional audits, or if we ever have to have a recount of a particular individual race on a smaller level, always done by hand. And again, we've done dozens of them since we've had this equipment. And again, always 100% accuracy, 100% agreement with election night results as reported. Okay, we can move forward. This is that universal voting console I mentioned earlier. As you can see, it's an ergonomically designed device with different colored and shaped buttons with raised edges, braille interpretation. On the lower right, you see an opportunity to introduce a headset. Part of the accessibility features is a complete audio presentation of the ballot for those who may have a visual impairment. For those who wish to access the ballot through the screen, you can enlarge the font on the screen. You can use color contrast versus black and white contrast if you wish. At the lower left of this device, you see the mobility symbol. Voters can introduce another modality into their assistive devices, such as sip and puff devices, to fully interact with the machine independently. And again, that's our goal. We want all voters, regardless of their level of accessibility or capabilities, to access and be able to access the voting machine independently if they wish and privately without any outside assistance. And we're very happy to let folks know that we've had some really good feedback on the use of the machines. We're very, very happy with how they work. Okay, we can move forward. Okay, encourage everyone to get involved. You know, Secretary of State Way in New Jersey mentioned the great response that they've seen for poll workers. We've seen the same in Delaware. We're still looking for poll workers as well, though we have plenty of interest, and we're still assigning poll workers. So certainly there are still options to visit elections.delaware.gov for more information. And to learn really more about the elections process. That website's full of information, full of everything from historical results, election law, election district maps, voter registration list. It's a treasure trove of information. So please be sure to visit our site and learn more. And then the last item I have here is just our social media. Right after this, we have our poll worker, we have our website, and then I have a slide. I believe the last slide is social media. We do have social media presence for our offices, and we welcome everyone to follow that and to become interested, become involved, and learn more. We love sharing our information. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you as well, Commissioner Albence, for that comprehensive presentation there. We applaud you. We know you have it together in Delaware. We really are amazed at your use of technology and so forth in order to get things done. And as bigger states, we are envious of your size and how nimble you're able to be in streamlining everything. I went to college at Delaware State, so I have a fondness for Delaware, and I go back whenever I can. So, you know, thank you for doing the service and all that you do there in Delaware, and we look forward to your continued service and the continued just great job that you're doing over there.
Thank you.
All right.
Just 1 second. I know the commissioner has to leave. I did see a question in the chat with respect to Delaware, and I just wanted to have the ability to put it forward before the commissioner stepped down.
Well.
Thank you, President Denby.
Sure. Commissioner Albence, the question is, an individual says she lives in Delaware, online said that my ballot was mailed on October the 5th, but I never received it. Can I cancel my mail-in ballot and vote in person? What is the process for this?
Sure. And actually, part of that ability, since we're small and streamlined in Delaware, is as I'm sitting right here, I'm looking up your record, as a matter of fact, and finding out right now what's going on.
Oh, you saw it. Good.
So let's take a look here. Yes, I do see that. And I can certainly talk to you offline in reference to that. But if we have a situation like that, and a voter has requested a ballot and they have not received it for some reason, they can certainly come to the polling place. Our poll books, when you check in, the poll book will reflect your status that a ballot was issued but not returned, and you'll be permitted to vote as well. That is no problem at all. And I'm seeing that comment in there, and I can certainly follow up with you as well on that and see if we can get that rectified, if you would like to have the vote by mail ballot, and see if to get that taken care of for you.
Thank you. We so appreciate that, and we thank you for your time.
My pleasure. And I'm actually off right now to drop more ballots off to the Postal Service, as a matter of fact. So
we know all of our election commissions are working hard, but thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay, so I'd like to also to bring on now, on a more active basis, the National Bar Association Election Protection Chair, Alicia Hughes. Alicia Hughes is also known as the guru of elections so far. She's definitely helped us all in ensuring, you know, quite frankly, that this program is brought to the forefront. So Alicia, I'd like to invite you. We have another panel coming up, and you'll be moderating.
That I will be doing. Good evening, everyone. And I hear a little echo I need to get rid of. Give me just a second here. Let's see, here goes. Hopefully that will do it. Before we get started, I wanted to go back to the top of the program, and I'm so grateful to Kyle for doing this for us. And Steve and I, we took some things out of turn because we've got great speakers, 2 panels, but we've got a few people that we need to acknowledge. And I think I get more credit than I'm due because we've essentially managed, based on Steve Hockaday wanting to save democracy here and paying attention to Region 3, to get together, thanks to Regional Director Melisha Ford, a task force, and it was a quick task force representing all of our, and could we go to the next slide, please, Kyle? All of the regions together in Region 3, the Garden State Bar Association President, Dean Burrell, came on board. Delaware Barristers Association President Brianna Denby came on board. Association of Black Women Lawyers of New Jersey came on board, with Regional Director Melisha Ford playing a very active role. The Delaware Barristers Association came on board, and Rhonda Hill Wilson has been extraordinary, along with James Lewis with the Garden State Bar Association, Nicole Mosey with the Delaware Barristers Association. And together we've put a committee together within the course of a month to bring you this program. So we simply wanted to make sure that we acknowledge, next slide please, everyone that has worked so incredibly hard to bring this together. Before I get to my panel, I would be remiss if I did not work. I am not the chairman of the National Bar Association's Election Protection Committee. We actually have 2 co-chairs, Leslie and Carlos Moore. And Carlos is here with us, and he is also NBA president-elect and task force, it says chair, but he's the co-chairman. And I'd like for him to speak a little bit on what the landscape is and what some of our challenges are. And then afterwards to have Brianna Denby, who's the president of the Delaware Barristers Association, give some brief remarks about the barristers and the great work that the barristers have been doing surrounding election protection and voter protection. And then Rhonda Hill Wilson, a past president of the Barristers Association of Philadelphia. After we hear from these lovely folks, we'll then get into that second panel. I know that time is of the essence, so I'm sure they'll keep these remarks brief. But Carlos Moore, are you still with us? And if so, let's turn this over to you. Could we advance to the next slide, please?
Thanks, Alicia. I appreciate you, and I appreciate Steve Hockaday for getting this panel and these panels together, for being so active in election protection. And so Leslie, Fields, and I are just happy to be co-chairing the Election Protection Task Force under the auspices of our magnificent president, C.K. Hoffler. And we have just met and have been on the front lines of trying to make sure that we have secure and safe elections in 8 days on November 3rd. And even while we have the early voting in several of the states across the country, we're trying to protect the vote day in and day out. And so we're just happy to play whatever small part we can play in this magnificent effort. And it seems that New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware are all well aware of what's going on across the country, and specifically in Region 3 to suppress the vote. And it seems that you are well on track to thwart any efforts to suppress the vote. So I am going to keep my remarks very short. I know the time is of the essence. You've met all the challenges, and you are ready to have a safe and secure election as far as I can see. And so my hat's off to each of you. Secretary Wade gave a awesome presentation. I enjoyed both of the election commissioners. So kudos, and I wish all of the regions were as advanced as Region 3.
Well, Carlos, thank you so very much for that. But some of the things that we have had some problems with would be the closing and consolidating of polling locations, the lack of accessibility, and the poll worker shortages. It seems to me as though these mail-in ballots and the efforts to suppress the vote. But you are right, President-elect Moore. We have got an awful lot of good stuff going on in our region, and it just does my heart good seeing what Delaware just did. Perfect example of the importance of bringing together and bridging the gap with elections officials, interfacing directly with constituents, and then the part that we're coming to after we finish with these brief remarks. And we want you to flood the chat room with questions that we can address. We've got election lawyer experts online who are actually members of the Philadelphia Barristers and the Garden State Bar Association. And Charles Gibbs and Dean Burrell are going to answer our questions for our citizens. So now we've heard from the folks with the, our officials. We want to hear from the lawyers on the private side. What do you do, citizens, if you have a problem? But before we get to that, let's hear from Brianna Denby, the president of the Delaware Barristers Association, and then from Rhonda Hill Wilson with the Association of Barristers in Philadelphia. Let's advance to the next slide, please. All right, and this is what just to make sure everyone knows that the NBA is on the money. You've heard from our president-elect. This is what we're doing. So we've been recruiting volunteers to deal with our hotline, with our coalition partners at 1-866-OUR-VOTE. And we're trying to make sure that polling places are safe and accessible, et cetera, et cetera. Brianna, take it away from here. Thank you so much, Carlos. We're really grateful that you've been with us.
Thank you, Alicia. And I really want to thank President C.K. Hoffler for allowing Delaware barristers to participate in tonight's event. And I'm also going to say thank you to President-elect Carlos Moore. Delaware is small, but we're mighty. And to our affiliates, our neighboring affiliates in Jersey and Philadelphia, you know, we don't have as many lawyers, but we still are doing very good work. And so, as Alicia mentioned, just last week, we hosted a really successful Delaware-specific voter town hall. And so, just as we heard from him tonight, we heard from Delaware's top election official, Anthony Albence, and that really is the point person for all things election law in Delaware. And so, you know, as we organize these high-quality events, not only for the Delaware barristers, but also for the region, we want to have the best source of information, and he is that with all things election law for the state of Delaware. During our event, we also heard from a staff attorney with the Delaware ACLU, also talking about what to do, you know, where to place your ballot, where to go with your mail-in ballot, the drop-off locations throughout all three counties in the state. We also heard from Nicole Mosey, who also was part of the planning committee for this event, but she also is a prosecutor for the Delaware Department of Justice. And there she was able to talk about what role that agency plays with respect to voter intimidation or the prosecuting of double voting violations. And then finally, we heard from our Office of the Public Defender, an individual, Paige Chapman, and she was able to talk about voting rights for ex-felons, and specifically, while it wasn't necessarily voting related, she gave a very good informational session on the expungement of a criminal record in Delaware. And so while all of our states are so very close together, we are very different in many ways, and that is one of them. And so we're currently planning many more events, so stay tuned. Like many other things in our lives, you know, everything is virtual, you know, and so we're going to continue to make sure all of our members, affiliates are safe, and we're going to execute high quality programming on the virtual platform going forward.
Thank you so much, President Denby. We're so grateful to you for all of your efforts and for making sure that the word is gotten out in Delaware. And we're going to now turn things over to, as my president, we're going to turn things over to Rhonda Hill Wilson to tell us a little bit about what's going on in Philadelphia with the barristers.
Well, first, I want to say thank you so much for your efforts, Alicia and Steve, for pulling all of this together. I bring you greetings from the Barristers Association of Philadelphia, Inc., and greetings to our president of the NBA, C.K. Hoffler, and to our president-elect, Carlos Moore. We thank you for being here with us. I bring you greetings from our president, Dominique B. Ward, Esquire, who is the president this year of the Barristers Association. And I am a member, I am on the advisory board and a past president of the National Bar Association Women Lawyers Division here in Philadelphia. In the fighting spirit of Fannie Lou Hamer, the late Fannie Lou Hamer, and how she encouraged us and extolled us when she lamented how in the 1950s and 60s she was not able to vote, and how she told us that she was sick and tired of being sick and tired. But she also gave us the antidote to the disease of white supremacy, intertwined with voter intimidation and voter suppression. She told us to vote. She told us to get up and vote, get out and vote, and just vote. And so to the MBA, I thank you for your 95 years of service to the African-American community and to this country. We thank you for this program. And to those who are listening who are not members of the MBA, we encourage you to become members. To people who are just listening in the audience who are members of the community, this is who we are and this is what we do. And we challenge you, we encourage you, we extol you to get out there and to vote and to make sure that others that you know and love vote as well. And so with that, I give the mic back to you.
We couldn't have had a better introduction to what do you do. Thank you so much, Rhonda.
You're welcome.
And calling on Fannie Lou Hamer. Oh my goodness. We are all sick and tired of being sick and tired, and people are fighting COVID-19. We have never had in our lifetimes to deal with a pandemic, and getting out the vote in massive numbers with these Good Trouble marches, which I am sure President Hoppler is going to talk about on the tail end of this program. Madam President, unless you want to jump in here, we've got one more person coming up because I don't think Mr. Gibbs is with us. And we want to hear from Dean Burrell and to field as many questions. And I think you can jump in too. We've got brilliant litigators and brilliant fighters. And one thing our president did not tell us is that she is also the chair for Rainbow Push Coalition right now. And Push is pushing people to the polls also. So when you get the National Bar Association family, you get it all. So right now, what you're experiencing is us do what we do, and we do it well. And what we're going to hear now, or who we're going to hear from now, is Dean Burrell. Dean Burrell is the current president of the Garden State Bar Association, longstanding member of the NBA. Dean, please talk to us and tell all of our citizens, what do you do from the private or the lawyer perspective when you run into trouble? What do you do? And what is some of the trouble that you've seen folks run into? So I'm turning the floor over to you now, and then we'll chime in with a question here and there once you're finished. And then we're giving it over to Madam President. Dean?
Excellent, thank you. So I am old enough to remember as a child going with my mother down to Southern Virginia from New York to the ancestral hearth below Petersburg, Virginia. And it was pretty exciting for a little guy. And then we got to Baltimore and we moved to the back of the bus. And I thought that was exciting. And I asked my mom why, and I didn't really get a straight answer. And then we got down to Dinwiddie and saw my grandfather's store. It had the big colored store sign on it. And I thought that was exciting too. And I'm going to be 65 this year. And I want to see to it that that never happens again, ever. So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing this. So approximately a month or two ago, well, actually, I'll go back to the summer. Former President Paulette Brown sent me a late night text. And Steve Hockaday and a number of folks, CK, know when you get a late night text from Paulette, it means business.
Yeah.
Okay, Paulette's no joke. Paulette said, what are you doing with election protection? Frankly, I hadn't done anything. I'd been involved with it in 2012, 2016, but now I was president of the Garden State Bar. So I started reaching out to folks, to the League of Women Voters, to the ACLU, to the Institute for Social Justice. Started gathering facts, started looking into this We the People. I was getting emails from them and found out that that was the Advancement Project, the Lawyers Committee, Civil Rights Under the Law. And then CK sent out her call to action. I signed up. I went through the training. I did my first shift on the election protection hotline. I encourage every one of you to do that. 866ourvote.com. Sign up. The sense of satisfaction that it has given me to have been of help and not just to our people, but to all people. I cannot measure it. So last week, we did a program with, for the Garden State Bar, we did a program with the League of Women Voters, ACLU, Institute, and we also included a partisan individual. And I won't get into parties because we don't do that. So that all I'll say is that they're the party that want folks to vote. And I learned the whole game. And we had the name of our program was the ground game on election day for attorneys of color. So I will be mixing what I'm doing on election day and before. I will be doing shifts on We the People. And then on election day, I'm going to be partisan because it allows me to go into the polls. I'm in one of the few contested races in New Jersey for the state Senate. If they need me here, I'll be in the polls. If I'm needed in South Jersey, which is those of us who live in Jersey know is called up south for a reason. If I'm needed there, I'll be there. And I still have my Pennsylvania license. So if I have to be in Pennsylvania, I'll get in my car and drive for 2 hours. But whatever happens on election day, I will not be sleeping on it. All I have to say is, hopefully none of y'all will be sleeping on it either. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dean. And let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
If we've got some citizens, because we're looking for questions in the chat, I don't see any, and I need to know when President Hoffler might pop back in. For our citizens, let's say a citizen has a problem when they get to the polls on election day. I'll give a couple of hypothetical questions. And they can't seem to find, well, they're told that their name isn't on the voter roll. What are they to do? But they know that they are a registered voter, but they're being denied access in New Jersey and in Pennsylvania, for example, at the polls. What advice do we give to that voter? What is that voter to do? If a lawyer were present at a polling location, what should the lawyer be instructing them to do?
Sure. First of all, in terms of Pennsylvania, I can't really opine. I will say if you're on the We the People database.
And I messed up. It's We the Action, Dean. I've been saying We the People just like you.
I'm sorry.
I've done it for a month.
You know, it's just a lot of numbers out there.
Yes.
But in New Jersey, what's interesting, and the Secretary of State touched on it, it's all provisional.
Yeah.
Now, that has significantly changed the ground game. And I say this as a attorney who practiced with and before the National Labor Relations Board. So I've been doing elections for decades. What it means in New Jersey is that they cannot turn you away, period. You will be allowed to vote. You will do a paper ballot unless, of course, you're disabled, and then you'll use the actual machine. But what that means is that for a provisional ballot, it means that they will be going through every ballot after election day. So that's the ground game in New Jersey, because we fully expect to go to court. We fully expect if they're not cured, because there'll be a curing process, we expect to fully go to court. But even if you're unsure in New Jersey, vote, period.
Period. Thank you so much for that. And I will say this to you, Kyle, if we could advance the next slide, please. The National Bar Association has been working extraordinarily hard with our over 100 affiliate partners at the national level. You can follow up with us at any time at nationalbar@electionprotection.org, or you can go to the NBAelectionprotection.com website. We also would encourage you to go and call 1-866-OUR-VOTE to access our Election Protection National Hotline, along with our partners, one of which would be the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. What we have been doing as members of the National Bar Association is signing up to be poll monitors and poll watchers. And if you see us at the poll locations, you definitely want to reach out if you run into a problem. So those are things that we're definitely going to suggest that you do. And I'm going to close this out just now by turning the program over to our president, CK Hoffler, for her top 10 voting tips, because she's got quite a bit of informative information so that she can close out our program and issue you the charge forward. Thank you so much to everyone for all the work you've done to make this a success.
Well, first of all, thank you so much to the Honorable Alicia Hughes, magnificent work. Honorable Steve Hockaday, wonderful. The Honorable Carlos Moore, you know, these are all honorable. And I say thank you to the chair, the co-chair of the election protection effort for the NBA, and to our president-elect for his magnificent job. He's carrying a lot of water in Mississippi because we have a lot of election suppression issues down there. And Carlos, I just want to thank you so much. To Brianna Denby, Nicole Mosey, and I don't know if I pronounced it correctly, James Wilson, Secretary Way, what a wonderful presentation she did. To Omar Sabir, Commissioner from Philadelphia, and to also the Commissioner Anthony Albanese from Delaware. You know, the one thing I remember when I think of Delaware, it's not the size of the dog that counts. It's the size of the fight in the dog. So when I think of Delaware, it might be small, but it's mighty. And they truly are a model for how we should work the technology and all the moving parts with the elections.
And so, we might have a president coming from Delaware too, President Hoffler.
Oh, really?
We have a candidate for president on the ballot from the mighty small state of Delaware by the name of Joe Biden. We might have a president.
Oh, now I see what you're saying. I thought, I misunderstood. Well, of course, we're supposed to be nonpartisan.
We are nonpartisan, but it's a
we are nonpartisan. So you see, I have to pause. But having said that, it is what it is. The facts are the facts. The truth is the truth, and that's that. So yes. I will now pivot because we're a nonpartisan organization. We are doing nonpartisan election protection, but just as we meet with candidates, we met, as you all know, with Senator Harris last week, the National Bar, she addressed the members. We are in our nonpartisan effort protecting the right to vote. And so I have 10 tips, voter tips. First, reach out and touch someone. Get 5 people registered to vote. In many states, it's not too late. In some states, you can register to vote on Election Day, November 3rd. Second, refuse to be denied. We know this in the tradition of the National Bar Association. We are refusing to be denied the right to vote. Don't let anyone determine your election experience. Number 3, recruit volunteer poll workers. We saw the robust effort in New Jersey. We saw in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, and in Delaware. Just model states in terms of recruiting poll workers. 4, volunteer to drive someone to the polls. Why is this important? We know that a lot of people, because the polling stations have closed in many localities, this is part of election suppression. Closing the polling station in our communities where people used to walk a couple blocks to vote, now they have to drive across town. And we know that COVID is alive and well, and the virus is breathing everywhere. So volunteering to drive safely people to the polls in your car or arrange for transportation. And the National Bar is very, very engaged in that effort as well. Protect yourself at the polls. So we know we need to wear the mask. By the way, the National Bar has sent thousands of masks throughout the country, especially in coordinations with our religious groups where there are people in communities that don't have protective gear. So wear the mask, wear the shield, that plastic shield. You may be looking some kind of way, but it's going to protect you. That's called a face shield. Social distance. Make sure you're 6 feet, at a minimum 6 feet apart. Bring hand sanitizer. Do not touch the machines if you can avoid it. If you have, some people use a pen, just remember, thousands of people before you will have touched that machine. You must have hand sanitizer, wear gloves if you need to, but just remember that we're operating in COVID. And bring an umbrella, bring a lawn chair, bring food, and bring water. Be well hydrated and be prepared to stand in line if you wait till Election Day. But don't wait till the last minute if you have early voting. Don't do that. And do not, at this point, my recommendation, don't send your ballots in the mail. It's too late now. Drop it in the ballot box, but it's too late, in our humble impression, too close to the election with all the litigations going on to rely on the mail. Next, please. Register with the NBA election protection effort. You can go to our webpage, www.nationalbar.org, and you can see all of the information of what we can do. It is never too late to become engaged in the National Bar effort. Have a voting plan. Plan your vote and vote your plan. Don't wait to the last minute. Don't let anyone else determine how you're going to vote. Vote at your comfort level. If you're comfortable standing at the polls, being in line for hours, and that works with you because you are determined to protect your right to vote, then you should do that. But if you're not comfortable doing that, as you know, there are many other ways. We heard presentations tonight of how you can vote. Verify your voting options now in person. Call the Secretary of State's office, call the election commissioner's offices, and all the information that we got tonight, look at that. Don't wait till the last minute. 9, reach out to the state election officials to find out the local rules in your area in case you've got questions about where are the ballot boxes where I can drop in my absentee ballot. Visit vote.org, vote.org to check your status. You don't want to be amongst the millions of people who have been purged from the polls without knowing about it. Do it today. And if you have a problem, any problem, large or small, now and when you're at the polls, call 1-866-R-VOTE, 1-866-R-VOTE. That ties in to the Lawyers Committee on Civil Rights, a partner of the National Bar Association in this election season. And any of the problems, whether you feel it's a safety problem, security problem, some type of suppression that you're seeing, something just doesn't quite sit right, please call. Escalate the problems up, and don't be afraid of calling the media. Information is power. There's so much disinformation out there. It's up to African-American lawyers, Black lawyers to set the record straight. And you can do that from your home, from your office, being in the community. There's no excuse for us not to do it because we don't have to be out in the streets to do it. We can do it from our home. We can have all of these webinars, seminars, Zoom to the Zoom calls. Pick up the phone, talk at your church to the last day. On election day, we should be doing that because I plan on election day doing drive-bys, not shootings, but just drive-bys in the Atlanta metropolitan area to see where there are problems so I can escalate them up. Don't let anyone determine our fate in our communities. And Black lawyers need to lead the way. So I just want to thank the NBA for all that you do. Thank our membership, thank our leadership, thank everyone associated with each and every one of these magnificent chapters, bar associations that put on this program tonight. This is really the best of the NBA. When we do election protection work, we stand on the shoulders of great heroes and heroines who have done this year in and year out. So let's go out there, protect the vote, and it's never too late, and encourage others to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you so much, President Hoffler. We are humbled that you looked and chose our program on voting and a voting plan to be your town hall meeting. Your leadership is inspired. You are truly an inspiration to all of us. And this has been a wonderful evening. And to our Regional Director, Melisha Ford, do you have anything to add before we close out the program tonight?
No, this was outstanding. Thank you again, everyone, for joining. And vote, vote, vote.
Thank you so much.
I'd just say one more thing. I wanted to recognize our Regional Director. My goodness, that's a senior moment, Melisha Ford. Thank you for everything. Just count it to my senior moment status, but not to my
no worries.
But
Thank
you've been
so
remarkable. We support you. We are so proud of what you're doing in this region. My first bar was Pennsylvania, just as an FYI.
Oh, wow.
1987, my first bar. So I was just so delighted to see it in this region. And thank you for pulling this together. The high level of participation was absolutely extraordinary. We want this out in the stratosphere so that everyone knows that when the NBA speaks, we are serious. So thank you again to our Regional Director for pulling it together.
Thank you, thank you. And thank you to Steve Hockaday and Alicia Hughes. You guys have been phenomenal. And the team itself was amazing. Our Election Protection Task Force for Region 3 has been phenomenal. Everybody did a great job. Again, thank you all for joining us. Vote, vote, vote.
Vote, vote, vote. Good night and help others. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night.
Bye.